We welcome you to the funeral services for Nedra Overstreet. I'm Bishop Dan Van Workum of the American Fork 13th Ward, and I will be conducting this meeting and presiding. Our prelude and postlude music is provided by Cheryl Norman, a family friend. Our chorister is Vicki Overstreet, a niece. The family prayer was offered before we began this meeting by Scott Reading, a son-in-law. We will open with hymn number 134, I Believe in Christ, after which the invocation will be offered by Sheila Steiner, a sister.
Our dear Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee at this time, wish to thank Thee for the beautiful life that Nedra led. We're thankful for her and all that she has influenced, for the wonderful angel that she's been here upon this earth. We're thankful, Father, for the gospel and its teachings to help us understand where she has gone. We're thankful for all those that have been so helpful and kind. We're thankful, Father, for her mother, who's 101. And Nedra has gone past, and Mother is still here. We don't know why, but we're thankful for the example she has given us. We're thankful, Father, for all that we have been given here upon this earth to help us. We pray that we may use it to serve Thee and do Thy will. We pray that Thy Spirit will be with us throughout this meeting and this celebration of Nedra's life. We pray for Thy blessings upon those who may be sick or afflicted or have cause to mourn, that they may be comforted. We do thank Thee again for all of our blessings, and we say these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
We will begin the service with a life sketch by Corrine Roberts and Tiana Reading, granddaughters. After that, we'll have a speaker, Galen Hadlock, Nedra's daughter, followed by a musical selection by Diana Folter, a family friend, accompanied by Cheryl Norman. I Stand All Amazed. After that, Andrea Reading, another daughter, will speak, followed by Karen Pedersen, a third daughter. Go to that point.
Nedra Thorderson Overstreet, age 81, left this life on January 18th, 2021, when the heart that she gave so freely to others just gave out. She was born on May 24th, 1939 in Lava Hot Springs, Idaho, to Carly Eugene and Winona Seeley Thorderson.
Nedra had a wonderful childhood with her parents and 5 siblings. After graduating from Davis High School in Kaysville, Utah, she attended Weber Junior College, where she met and fell in love with a big football player named Earl Leroy Overstreet, who helped her fix her stuffed walker. After leaving Weber, they both continued their educations at Brigham Young University and were married in the Salt Lake Temple on May 31st, 1962. Nedra graduated from BYU with a degree in elementary education and taught 3rd grade for several years before she and Leroy began her family.
She gave birth to 4 children: Jeffrey Bryan, Karen Renee, Andrea, and Galen. Although Jeffrey died at a very young age, her 3 daughters grew up adoring their mom, and even today are still trying to be like her. Nedra and Leroy set an example of a true love story for their children and posterity that is already legendary.
It's fair to say that anyone who knew Nedra loved her. She found the good in everyone, and she never complained. She was an active member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served faithfully in many callings, including Relief Society President, Young Women's President, and Primary President. She and her husband Leroy served 4 missions together for the church, 1 teaching institute at the University of Florida, and 3 to the Washington, D.C. Temple. They welcomed anyone and everyone into their home and treated them as their own. As a result, they had countless adopted children.
Nedra loved sewing and was a perfectionist. Cross-stitching, painting ceramics, building puzzles, playing games, reading and studying her scriptures. She lived in 9 states in support of her husband's professional pursuits. She always moved with a smile, except for the one from South Carolina and Colorado when the food storage had leaked all over her furniture in the back of the moving truck. She loved traveling after her retirement. Some of her favorite destinations include Alaska, Mexico, Switzerland, and Iceland.
Nedra is survived by her husband Leroy, mother Winona, siblings Sheila Steiner with Devon, Zach Thorderson and Donna, and Kim Thorderson with Claudia. Her 3 daughters, Karen Pedersen with Dan, Andrea Reedy with Scott, and Galen Hadlock, and her 8 grandchildren, Corinne Roberts with Rick, Easton Pedersen with Daisha, Tammy Pedersen with Brookley, Dawson Pedersen with Paige, Jeffrey Reading, Tiana Reading, Carter Reading, and Griffin Hadlock, and her 9 great-grandchildren, Daisy, Libby, Street, Stade, Baylor, Palmer, Oaks, and Cove.
Nedra was preceded in death by her father, Carly Thorderson, her brother, Richard Thorderson, married to Carol, her sister, Connie Louder, married to Grant, and her son, Jeffrey Overstreet. Grandma was very selfless and always serving others. When I had my twins 9 years ago, we lived in Chicago, and Grandma insisted that she come out with my mom to help me. I tried to tell her that wasn't necessary. We lived in a really small townhouse. We didn't have a guest room, and there was barely enough room for my mom to sleep on the couch, let alone having Grandma come out. And I was so worried that she would be uncomfortable. But she didn't care. She wanted to come help me so badly. She spent the next 2 weeks staying up late with my twins and my mom so that Rick and I could get the first few hours of the night's sleep. She helped with feedings and diaper changes. And the thing that meant the most to me was she spent hours and hours with my oldest daughter, Daisy, playing with her. They would build puzzles and color, and they developed a really sweet bond. And I was so grateful she was able to give her the attention that I wasn't able to give her at that time when I was so focused on newborn twins. I know 2 weeks of alternating between sleeping on the couch and on the blow-up mattress on the floor was very hard on her body and exhausting for her, but she never complained and was only concerned about me, my emotional and physical well-being, and what else she could do to help. This is how she lived every day of her life. Even up until the last day that I saw her, she looked really pale and dizzy and weak that morning. But all she could do was ask me if I was feeling okay and if there was anything she could get from me. I hope to live my life like my grandma, always serving others.
Grandma taught me that everyone deserves to be loved and that there's always good in everyone. My favorite memories of her are when I would skip lunch at junior high and go over to her house. Sometimes I'd bring friends over, sometimes I wouldn't. And we'd just talk for the couple minutes that I could spend with her and Grandpa. The last time I saw her, me and Mom were playing games at Grandma and Grandpa's house. And they were beating me and Grandma really well in hand and foot. Then me and Grandma rallied, and she was so excited to be them. And she's taught me that love is really all you need. Thanks. Thank you for coming today on behalf of my family. We appreciate you and the love that you have for our sweet mother. I don't know how I'm supposed to share almost 50 years of memories in just a few minutes, but I'll do my best to share about my most perfect mother. A sweet friend said to me this morning, "Galen, it'll be easy. You adored her. She was the person you adored most on this earth. You can do this." So I pray that I can, and I'm grateful for that advice. I had to write things down because I knew I'd be a complete mess. So please forgive that. I don't have a specific first memory of my mom. She's just always there. Every time something happened in my life, she's there. But here's a few. Some of you may not know, and some you might enjoy hearing again. She hated water. It's funny because we lived on an island for so many years, but she was scared of it. And she would wear a nose plug, and she would never put her head underwater. And when we lived in South Carolina, Andrea and I were out on a float, and we got pulled out, and we were thrown against the jetty. And here comes sweet mom, scared to death, but she came out to help us and rescue us, like she always does. Thinking of others first before herself. She taught me how to sew, how to cook, how to clean, how to drive, poor thing. She loved a bit of honey candy. So every time I see that, I would pick it up for her at the store. She loved Nat King Cole. She loved big band music. It made her happy, and it makes me happy to listen to those too. She is an angel. However, she has some character streaks in her too. If you've ever been with my mom at a restaurant, and her sisters and mother, grandma, this is you. They will take the straws and tear the paper, and they will shoot them at you. And sometimes they would miss and hit the people in the booth next to them, and mom would be like. So, while an angel, she still had some humor in her. She's the biggest fan of her kids, of her grandkids, and her great-grandkids. She never missed an event in her lives, ever. Even when she was frail and would take so long to walk, she was there. I'd shop for them a lot on the weekends to get their groceries for them because it was just easier, and I enjoyed doing that. And I would always bring her some sort of treat, just because. She had celiac, so there were certain things she was limited in eating. But she was always so grateful for the treats. And she would say, "Man, someday I'm going to be so excited to have that first bite of cinnamon roll again. And be able to eat rolls at dinner, and have pizza, and cookies. So Mom, you're having it all." hugs were pure love. She would not let you go until she was done. And she, even if she was sitting in her chair and frail and tired, and I would try to hug her, she would say, "No, I'm standing up for a proper hug. You give me a real hug. I'm not letting you leave until you do." "Okay, Mom." She's so gracious for everything. A dear friend said last night, "You know, Galen, there are women and there are ladies, and Mom's a lady. Gracious for everything and everyone. She is truly the most Christ-like person I have ever known." She's never said a bad thing about anyone, nor would I imagine anyone about her. I remember her reading her scriptures and praying, and the strong testimony that she would share with those around her. And for those of you that know me, I was a colorful teenager, and Mom loved me. And I would tell Mom and Dad, "You can have whatever you want. You put up with me as a teenager. Whatever you want's yours." For Christmas, I got a minky blanket from work, and I never understood the hype about these blankets. They're like $250. I'm like, "Oh, it's a blanket." But when I took it out of the package at the house, and Mom put it on her lap, she just sat there. She said, "This is nice." I mean, she's always cold, like turtlenecks in the summertime cold, right? Everyone knew she had 5 layers on when it's 100 degrees outside. So I bought her a minky. And the day I brought it over, gave it to her in the kitchen, and she and Dad are standing there. I said, "Close your eyes, Mom." And we put it on the counter, and she goes like this. And she opened her eyes, and she just went, and just wrapped her arms around that blanket. She was having a dizzy morning that morning. So I said, "Do you want to go to your chair or to bed?" And she said, "I want to go to my bed." So she laid on the bed, and took that blanket, and put it right under her chin, and snuggled it, and she had the biggest smile. She goes, "This is nice." And every single time I talked with her, she thanked me for that blanket. Something so simple, and she's still so gracious. I passed a professional exam recently that was a lot of work. And when I called Mom and Dad, the first thing she said was, "I'm so proud of you. And I want to take you for ice cream." Again, always wanting to do something for someone else, even though she could barely get out of her chair. Some of the memories I have with Griffin and Mom and Dad are going on trips with them. We went to Hawaii. We went to Arizona. We would play games. Griffin, when he got his car, went over without me knowing and took Mom and Dad for a ride. And she loved to have the sunroof open with the heater on. And she loved to do that in my car too, with the heated seat. She'd just sit there and say, "Okay, Galen, let's do this." And she'd just say, "Me." She loved it. Last Friday, she called me, and she said, "Galen, you're my sunshine. When you walk in a room, you light it up, and you make me happy. I call my son my sunshine, S-O-N, and she'd never called me that before. grocery list, came back with her groceries, stayed and talked a while, went home, did several things, and I FaceTimed him, and I said, Mom, I did something grown up. I know you'll be proud of me, so I want you to see. I cleaned my oven. I had the spray, and I read it, and it said, heat it to 200, turn it off, spray, close the lid, whatever. And I said, Mom, look. She said, honey, do you have a self-cleaning oven? I was like, I don't know, do I? So I saw the button, and she said, all you have to do is close the door and push the button. And I said, Mom, this is how you told me how to do it, I didn't know. And she just sat there and giggled and laughed at me. And it was so much fun. And Dad, too. Griffin and I have been in this ward with Mom and Dad since 2008. This is our home. She and Dad are my strength and my support. We would have daily calls, FaceTime, visits, sometimes multiple a day. And I'm not sure how I'll do this without Mom. President Russell M. Nelson said this quote, and I had 3 people send it to me on the day of Mom's passing. And he said, the only way to take sorrow out of death is to take love out of life. Mom was the greatest example of loving everyone around her. If you met her or knew her, she loved you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity we had to be by her bedside as a family with my dad and my 2 sisters as she took her final breath. It was the most sacred and heartbreaking experience of my life. And in true Mom fashion, she hung on, wanting us to be okay. I miss her dearly. But I know through the gospel we will be together again. And I know she's already guiding me in some decisions, some questions I've had in my life for years. She's already answered them. If I could be even half the woman that she was, I'll consider my life a success. Mom, I miss you. I love you. I am honored to be your daughter. I will do the best I can to live a life like Mom. People would always say, Cameron, you look like your mom. And I would say, thank you. Because she's beautiful.
I'm the only one with blue eyes, so.
I am honored to be her daughter. And if I were ever to be worthy enough to be told I'm like my mom, I would be.
Mrs. Galen is, these are my notes. But I woke up this morning and I saw the snow outside. And I said, it's going to be a wonderful day. Mom would be so excited to see the snow. And when the snow is falling, I always think of it as kisses from heaven. Look at all these kisses Mom has sent down for all of us today. Always thinking of others, like Galen said. That's just the way she is. Galen has given a really beautiful tribute to her mom, who's a really beautiful person. Inside, outside, upside down and sideways. I wasn't always the easiest kid. As a little one, I ran circles around everyone. I was the one who literally climbed the drapes. Talked non-stop and just never stopped spinning for a moment. And having some energetic kids of my own, I asked Mom, how in the world did you ever do it? And she would always tell me, oh, Andrea, you were just so cute. And I believe her, because Mom doesn't tell lies. Never has, never will. So if Mom said I was cute, then instead of being a whirling dervish Tasmanian devil, then it was true, I was cute. I always loved having Mom tuck me in. That was one of my favorite times of the day. She would read us a story. She would sing a song. But my favorite was when she would tell me a story. And my favorite story was about the night I was born. She calls me her little dessert. She and Dad were out on a date, and this was a special date because Uncle Dick paid for it. They all went out together, and Mom's like, I know I'm in labor. I do not care. Dick is screaming for dinner, and we're going. It was pretty great because the whole time they were eating, Mom and Dad were keeping track of her labor pains on a napkin. And Dad had some students that were back in the kitchen that came out with their big old cleavers. Okay, whenever you're ready. Fortunately, we got to the hospital in time. And it was about time for dessert. I wish I had that napkin. Oh, I would pay big money for that napkin. About time for dessert. Mom, in her sweet little way. Little boy, I think it's time. So they had to leave. And instead of having a wonderful dessert, they ended up with me. For which I'm forever grateful. I could not have had a better mom. She was well loved by everyone who met her. Even if it was just for a moment. That's one thing that, well, there are thousands of things, but that's one of the things about my mother that I hope to carry on. I try to. The second you entered her life, not just her home, but the second you entered her life, you were loved, you were special, you were family. No matter your past, no matter your future, no matter what you were doing, it doesn't matter anything. Mom loved everybody. She had a spirit calm about her. a spirit of grace. No matter the situation. Her sweet influence was felt. I very rarely saw her angry. Most of the time when she was angry, it was at us three girls for fighting with each other. We were really good at that. I think she was way happy when we finally grew up. She was always there for everything. Weddings, eagle courts, graduations, babies. For all of us girls, she was always there 2 weeks at least for our babies. I don't think any of us knew how hard it was for Mom in her frail and broken body, because she never complained. She might say, "Oh, I'm a little tired today," which would put most of us flat on our backs in bed. What can I do for you? How can I help you? We loved our games. Oh, we had fun, and yes, Tiana and Mom trounced us at hand and foot. We were doing pretty well the first couple of hands, how Dad? That was not to be. She was so happy. It was awesome. She loved to win. She didn't mind losing, but she did love to win. Mom had a quiet elegance about her. She had a quiet strength. And a peace. And I'm grateful to feel the peace that she always radiated. Even on Monday, in all the chaos and the tough decisions that had to be made, there was peace. The Lord has allowed us many tender mercies in this last week. And I'll be forever grateful for those. She's with us. In all that we do and all that we say. I look at my sisters. And I see Mom and Dad. In their strength. In their fun. In their testimonies. Mom had a great testimony. She was steadfast and immovable, not a stubborn woman, persistent sometimes. Not a stubborn woman, not a brash or in-your-face woman, but she was steadfast and immovable in the gospel. She and Dad were truly partners. Not one walk ahead and one walk behind, but together. I love my sports. But Dad, you and Mom are the best team I've ever seen. They win the Super Bowl of life. And I'm glad to be on their team. I'm not going to say goodbye. Mom's just moved for a little while. Like we moved as kids. It's a little harder to write letters to her. But she's there. She loves us. She's watching over us. It's a little deployment. pen pals with angels. Mom truly is an angel. I used to give her a hard time. I say, Mom, how do you do it every day? How do you tuck those wings? I mean, angels don't have wings. How do you tuck those wings in every morning when you get dressed? Well, she doesn't have to anymore. She doesn't have to anymore. She's laid this mortal body by, and her celestial soul, that sweet, perfect, caring, loving soul, will live forever in all of us. I hope to one day grow up and be like my mom. She's a little bit of heaven on earth. Now she's a little bit more heaven in heaven. We miss her. We love her. We will never forget her. We will always try to be like her. I can't cry because I'm not sad. Because I know where she is. I know who she's with. And I know she loves us. And always will. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
It's hard to know what to say after all the great things my sister said. I want to add to Andrea's testimony of knowing where she is and the gratitude for the blessings of this week that prepared us. Monday morning when Galen called and said she was on the way to the hospital in an ambulance and that she had stopped breathing and they were able to get her breathing and get a pulse again, I knelt down to pray. I think I shared this with Jane this morning. And I wanted to pray for her to be okay. Because there have been lots of times in the last few years where Mom's had problems, and I've done that. I've knelt down and said, Heavenly Father, please help her be okay. And I couldn't do it. The words wouldn't come out. Andrea and I talked a little bit later that day, and she had the exact same experience. She said, I felt tongue-tied. Those words wouldn't come out. And I was like, that's the perfect description. And instead of asking for Mom to be okay, I asked for peace and comfort for our family. I knew. Heavenly Father, bless me and I think my family that morning to know that what was coming that day. We were really blessed. We got to the hospital and there was a nurse who snuck us in so we could be with her. And I walked into the room and I knew she was gone. I knew her spirit wasn't there, that was just her body left. And when we reached a point where we had to make a decision, I think we all knew that. Even my dad was ready to say, we need to let her go. I'm grateful for our loving Heavenly Father who let us all experience those things so that we could let her go and feel happy, even though we're all so sad. It's been a week of conflicting emotions. But like Andrea, I'm mostly sad. I mean, mostly happy, sorry. There's a lot of sad too. I get them all confused this week. But I know what she was worried about going to. We had actually had a conversation about a week and a half ago. Andrea and I were there for lunch and we were talking about the last emergency a few weeks ago. And she said she wasn't afraid to go at all. Her worries about going were 3 people. my dad, my grandma, and my Aunt Sheila. She didn't want to leave them alone. They used to have Girls' Day almost every week, and she would come home and I'd say, "How was Girls' Day?" And I would laugh at her behind her back because she would always say, "Oh, Grandma is really slowing down. Sheila's really slowing down. Connie's really slowing down." And I'm like, "Mom, have you seen yourself?" But it's true. She always worried about everyone else. And when I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I wanted today to be a celebration because really it is. How cool will it be when we are all there with her again? And I know she's with my brother. I know she's with her brother and sister. And what a reunion that must be. So I asked my family if they would just share a little memory or thought that I could share today. And I'm going to shorten them because our time is short and I don't want this to drag on for everyone forever. But it's pretty cool when a man can say this about his mother-in-law. Nedra is the most incredible lady and possibly the most Christ-centered person I have ever known. A person without guile. You know, as I listened to my sister's talk, I was sitting there thinking, gosh, we're making her sound like she's perfect. I mean, but she was to us. And that's a really neat thing to be able to say about your mom. Because I think my kids can't say that about me. They can remember me maybe yelling or being really upset with them about things, and I can only remember my mom raising her voice at me one time. And it was when I was fighting with my sisters. I'm sure there were a couple of other times, but that's who my mom was, and I'm so grateful to have been raised by such an amazing lady and an amazing father. I know that he wouldn't be able to stand up here today and talk. But watching him say goodbye to her was, I wish you all could have seen it because it was beautiful, Dad. We knew how much our parents loved each other, but it is a memory I will always cherish and says so much about my mom. You heard a memory of my daughter, Corey, so I'm going to skip a memory from her, but I want to share a cool thing Easton sent me on Monday, later in the day after he found out she had passed away. He said, she was always great about giving me her hugs, but she was masterful during my darkest times and years when I was in high school. Of whispering in my ear as she hugged me that she would never give up on me. After diction night got sealed, while still in the ceiling room, she gave me a hug and whispered, "I never gave up on you," and told me she was proud of me. Every time I've ever given her a hug, all these years since, she has whispered, "I am so proud of you," every single time. Nobody could make me feel better about myself during times when I didn't even like who I was better than Grandma. When I asked Tanner to share a memory, he just said, you know, when someone passes away, you always hear people say how great they were and how perfect they were, and you wonder if it's really true, but with Grandma, it really was. And he said, not only have I never heard her say a bad thing about anyone, but I'd be willing to bet nobody's ever said a bad thing about her. Dawson's first thought when she passed away was a memory. My parents, when all of our kids, all of their grandkids turned 8, while they were living in Hawaii, they flew them over, and they got to spend a week or two with my parents doing all the Hawaii things. I'm not for sure, but I think Dawson was the first one to turn 8 after they moved here, and he was feeling really gypped. Like, what are they going to do for me? And they took him to Disneyland. And he said he remembers he loves, I can't remember the name, Paige, you told me, I wrote it down, the name of the ride. It's the water log ride. Paige knows like the insider Disneyland name for it because she's a big Disney fan, but Dawson loves that ride so much. He said, I think we rode it 8 or 9 times in a row. And that last couple of times Grandma didn't ride it. Grandpa rode it with me, and we got off the ride, and Grandma was standing waiting with a towel with the logo of that ride on it, stretched out to wrap me in because I was soaking wet. I'd like to share a journal entry from our granddaughter, Daisy. She's the oldest great-grandchild. This is what she wrote on Monday when Mom passed away. On January 18th, 2021, my great-grandma Gigi passed away. We are all so sad, but I know she is in heaven. I love her so much. My grandma came over after it happened and asked all of us what our favorite memory of Gigi was. My favorite was when my grandma and grandpa were living at Gigi's house and I slept over one night. I was pretty little. It was time for breakfast and Gigi was making pancakes. I asked her if I could make my own pancakes and she said yes. I was so excited and I started making the batter. She already had all of the ingredients out, so I just started putting things in. I got to the salt and just dumped some in. Gigi cooked the pancakes and served them to us. I was so proud. We all tasted them. All the salt in the ocean was in my pancakes. I will never forget the taste of those pancakes and how Gigi let me make them, but most of all, I will never forget my kind and loving great-grandma. I have so many memories, and I could share memories all day, but I won't. I do want to just share one memory and one thing that I have told people a million times about my mom. Andrea mentioned she came and helped with each of our babies. She didn't just help. It was pretty amazing. Best gift I've ever been given. She would come, and when the baby woke up at night, she would go get the baby, change the baby's diaper, bring them to me in bed, sit on this side of the bed while I nursed my babies. Then when I was done, she would take the baby, burp the baby, and stay with the baby and hold it until it would go back to sleep. All 4 of my kids. And I think all of my nieces and nephews too. Pretty amazing gift, because I'm the biggest sleep limp in the world. And for me, the hardest part about having babies was no sleep. And she knew that, and she came and made it easy for me. I also have one other little memory I wanted to share. When we lived in Oklahoma, we had kind of a little garden thing outside a window, and hummingbirds came there all the time. And I remember one day I said, "Mom, there's a hummingbird." I think I was in 2nd grade, maybe 1st grade. And she was in the kitchen washing dishes, and she came over and sat down with me. She put everything down, and we sat at the window and watched the hummingbird together for a long time until it flew away. And I hadn't even thought of that until this week. I didn't even remember that. That memory came back to me this week. But the reason I share that, because it doesn't even seem that big of a deal, is because that's how she was. Everything got dropped when any of us needed something. I remember staying up all night for 2 nights in a row to sew a dress for me that I just had to have for my senior dinner. And she didn't think she could sew it. And I said, "Yes, you can, Mom, you can sew anything." And she went to work all day, came home and sewed all night, so I could wear that silver dress with the butterfly sleeves that went really high. And I couldn't wait to walk into that dinner. That's just who she was. I'm so grateful to have met her daughter. Grateful for my dad. You can do this. You really can. I know you don't think you can, but you can do it. We're going to see her again. And I'd like to close with that testimony. I know that our Savior died for us so that we could live again. I know that Heavenly Father's plan of happiness is perfect. And that now it's just our job to do the best we can so that we can be with her again. I've had some really amazing spiritual experiences in the last month that I know prepared me for this. she is, and I know what she's doing. And I'm going to do my best to be able to join her there one day. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I will share a few closing remarks, after which we will have a closing hymn. I know that my Redeemer lives, in number 136, and the benediction will be offered by Scott Overstreet, a nephew. When you review the program for a funeral and see that your remarks come after three sisters, you don't feel a great need to prepare much. So thank you for that. Now, I have spent a lot of time this week thinking about the Overstreet family. Leroy's one of the few people on earth that I have to prepare to shake hands with. You know what I mean? My family is blessed to have a relationship with each of the three daughters. And I have to admit that I didn't know Nedra that well. And as I thought about that, I wondered why. And I think the main reason why is because her life wasn't about her. And she wasn't one to sit around and speak of herself or her experiences. And her life is sitting right here. Her journal is sitting right here. And what was important to her is sitting right here. I did come across a message delivered in the October 2004 General Conference by President Gordon B. Hinckley that I think accurately reflects what I was privileged to witness between Leroy and Nedra in the last hours before she passed. 6 months after his eternal companion had passed away, President Hinckley remarked, "Before I married her, she had been the girl of my dreams. She was my dear companion for more than 2/3 of a century, my equal before the Lord, really my superior. And now, in my old age, she had again become the girl of my dreams. As I held her hand and saw mortal life drain from her fingers, I confess I was overcome with loneliness. But in the quiet of the night, a silent whisper is heard that says, 'All is well, all is well.' And that voice from out of the unknown brings peace and certainty and unwavering assurance that death is not the end, that life goes on, with work to do and victories to be gained. That voice quietly, even unheard with mortal ears, brings the assurance that, as surely as there has been a separation, there will be a joyful gathering and reuniting. To this I add my testimony. We have a loving Heavenly Father. He is real. Just as real is the atonement made by His Son, Jesus Christ, so that, come what may, we can enjoy peace in this world and eternal life in the world to come. I so testify in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Father, as we close this service, we give Thee thanks for the opportunity to be here, to have felt Thy Spirit. We thank Thee for Thy plan, which enables us to be here. We thank Thee especially for our Savior, for His atonement, which gives us peace and comfort in times such as this. We thank Thee for our Savior's kindness and love, and for Nedra's kindness and love to each of us. May we each understand the gifts of the Spirit, which we are blessed with, and be able to share them with others, as Nedra has done with us. We ask a blessing upon Leroy at this time, and in the coming weeks and months. Bless him with added strength and courage to move forward. And Nedra's daughters, Karen and Andrea and Galen, and the rest of her family, that we all might go forward as better people from having known her and her example of Christ-like love. We ask Him to help us to better understand the atonement and to understand eternity and our part in it. Again, we're grateful for this time together, to be able to gather and to fill Thy Spirit and to fill Thy love. And we ask that this might go forth with us. And we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
After we dismiss, we will gather with the family of the American Fork Cemetery for the dedication of the grove. It will be performed by Dan Pedersen, the son-in-law. The casket bearers are Easton Pedersen, the grandson, Tannen Pedersen, the grandson, Lawson Pedersen, the grandson, Rick Roberts, grandson, Jeffrey Reading, grandson, Carter Reading, grandson, Griffin Hadlock, grandson, Lynn Overstreet, brother-in-law, and Orville Perry, family friend. Honorary casket bearers are Zach Thorderson, a brother, Kim Thorderson, son, a brother, and Rich Wilbank, a friend.